Alright, so I'm gonna be working on my used oil burning stove today, modifying a little bit. I forgot to start recording till just now, so. But I built this last year out of an old hot water heater tank, and using it for a winter made me realize I needed to do some modifications to make it a little bit more efficient. I'm gonna extend the air box, I guess you could say, down to right here's the red hot line, and I'm going to extend it down a couple inches lower than that and box it all out so the air comes out around this also, so that'll help get more heat out of it. I'm also going to make my own dampener and put it in there to control the airflow, because if you forget about it for a second and you turned it up and let too much oil get in it, it actually sounds like a rocket going off, and I've had flames coming out the top of my chimney, so I need a way to control that, and I'm gonna put a dampener in it. One other thing, the actual air feed into the oil, it's too low. I need it higher. I need another ½ inch or so, maybe 3/4 of an inch taller up out of the oil. Alright, so I got it all framed up, ready to go. I had to weld it up, it's just tacked in, I gotta get it all welded up. I do have another piece I'm gonna put about in the middle here just as a stiffener. And that's it, we'll get this all welded up. I got all the sheet metal pieces cut. I just had a old dryer that I had taken apart, and this is the metal off of it. Had a couple pieces of that, used it to cut these out. Wire brushed around the edges so I have clean metal to weld with. Got everything cut to fit, ready to go. So, get this all welded up. Alright, so I got it all tacked together. Got the frame welded up and all the sheet metal tacked on. Got a lot of welding to do. Some of these I'll weld all the way in, some of them I'm just gonna tack. Like the corners I'll probably just tack, but like along all the seams I think I'm gonna end up filling the whole thing in. All around the tube, fill that all in. The crack in between the two pieces. Leave the corners, and all the corners, just tack all that. I think we'll be all right. Lock this off right here so I make sure and force the air to come out the bottom part. So the only way the air can come out is through all the little gaps in the metal, which I'm not worried about. These fans push a lot of air. So hopefully the air just comes through the tubes, gets pushed down here and around the bottom, and comes out the two sides. Fill all that in. I just tacked it all, and I feel like a little bit of air will leak out of all these cracks, but it isn't gonna hurt anything, so still plenty of air being pushed through the rest of it. Alright, keep going. Alright, I forgot to record this. I got busy on it. Totally didn't think about it, but I was making a dampener for this. I used old tire iron I had. Drilled a hole all the way through to the center of it. Put that in there, and I cut me a 1/4-inch plate. The size of the hole. I think this is an 8-inch. But of course it's not perfect because I've had to make that myself. And drilled a hole in the center of it to be able to tack weld it, and then you can flip it over and weld the rest of it to the iron. There we go, we have us a dampener. Okay, so this is the air feed into the fire, and it's only, as you can see, about a 1/4 inch up off the bottom surface where the oil sits in the pan. So I cut all these out of an old leaf spring. I'm gonna weld them under 1.25 inches, so I make it 1.5 inches off the oil pan. That way it'll allow more oil to sit in there without flooding my air holes. I had a problem with the oil level getting too high and blocking the air coming in, so 1.5 inches ought to do it pretty good. So I cut 8 of these to match the octagon here I made. Get that put together. Alright, so I got my stove all modified and fixed up. I built this last year, and at that time I built it, I only made enough air vent to come down here, this wasn't there, and blow the air straight out through the sides, as well as the heat exchangers. Well, I discovered after a winter of using this that part down there where the fire is gets red hot, and there's no air blowing on it to help distribute the warm air. So this year I modified it and added another 16 inches. So this is about 32 inches here on this, for this hot water heater. That's what it ended up being. And so now the air comes in, it goes through these tubes, the heat exchangers, and it also gets forced down the side of the stove and out these vents to collect the heat and push it out into the shop. Simple setup here. It's actually fairly expensive to buy all these fittings. I was a little surprised, but that's what it is. And this is just the valve to open and close it, control the flow. These are shark bite fittings. And a tube up to a 5-gallon bucket up there. This is just temporary until I get my tank outside mounted and a pipe ran through the wall. So I can, have like 55 gallons at a time instead of 5 gallons. I'm discovering I'm burning 5 to 10 gallons a day on a cold day out here, keeping this going. So I need bigger than 5-gallon tank. Anyway, so there that is. I used, this came out of a furnace out of a house, obviously. There's a square hole on the inside there that forces the air in. I just tack welded it because I don't care about leaks. It's pushing more than enough air with this fan that all the little leaks and stuff ain't gonna make any difference. What else? Let's see. Built this little stand for it. There's a couple of old leaf springs and just some scrap metal I had laying around. This was I wanted to say a 30-gallon, but it might have been a 40, but I want to say 30-gallon hot water heater that I used for this. Let me show you inside here what we have. So this is the very bottom of the hot water heater. I made an air intake. I made a plate that fit inside here, welded it all around the outside edge so the air doesn't leak through there. We want the air to come up through the center. So it does, the air comes in through here, goes up through the center of that, and into this pan that comes up through the middle right here. This is really crude. It's really, like I said, all this scrap metal because, you know, it's just a oil burner stove. That's what I did. So you take this. A lot of people, you know, probably gonna give me crap about it not being a circle, but the air flows no matter what. You don't need it to be a circle to do it. Just work just fine. So. It gets squared up on the hole, and it stays in place. Of course, there's my feed tube that came through the side. Goes through here and up to where the oil comes in. That's just a copper pipe there, 1/2-inch copper pipe, run down through the center of that. And what that allows is air will actually get sucked around that copper pipe. It'll get sucked into the stove when it's going and help keep that cool. But, okay, there's that part. Now, the last piece I built was this. It's to fit over the centerpiece, and I've got 8 1/2-inch elbows with holes drilled in it all the way. Holes. So the air comes in through the bottom of the stove, up through the center of it, which goes up to the center of this, comes back out, and then gets sucked through all these holes, and they're all facing the same direction, which create a vortex inside the stove. That's looking pretty rough. It's just 1 year of use, but that's why I use scrap metal. And so this is actually, I had a bunch of 2-inch strips, so I just cut them to length, and actually I think I used old leaf spring for those. But anyway, that's that. These were about 1.5 inches off the bottom of the oil pan where it sits. You just take this. That son of a gun's heavy. It needs to be fairly heavy. It needs to be kind of heavy because if this thing really gets going and you really got it cranked up, the amount of air flowing through there could possibly lift that up off of it if it isn't heavy enough to hold itself down. If you make this out of a lighter material and it's going to be too light, you can also take an old brake drum or rotor or something and just set it on there for weight, and it won't hurt your water, your airflow, or the fire or anything. Now to show you guys how we light this. A lot of people have a torch that they use or something like that, but I run a acetylene way too often to make sure I have one around to light a fire. So we're gonna crank this open just a little here. For some reason a little caught on the side and it's flowing down the side, but it is coming out. You can see it is flowing out. So we're gonna get some oil down the bottom of this. Oil's filling up in there a little bit. You're gonna get, I don't know, about half of this pan start to get a little oil in it. Oh, about like so. I'm gonna shut that valve off. It'll drain for a few seconds because of all the travel in that tube. Then what I do is I take, for instance, an old rag. You don't need a whole lot. This is about half a rag. And what I'm going to do, let me set this up for you. All right, so the airflow is counterclockwise on this design. So I'm going to light the end of this rag here. And I'm going to put it towards the side from which the air is flowing. What we want to do is get that stuff down in there to start soaking up some oil, and it'll act as a wick to start the fire. Just get this down here, you got that corner lit, got that rag pushed down into the oil. Actually, that oil has gone around the whole, there's a little thin layer of oil around this whole pan. And what that does now, got the rag lit, as you can see. It's gonna start raining, I'm gonna have to roll up my windows. So what this says, you close the door and start forcing the air to come up through here and up through the center and create that vortex. Now we're gonna give it about a minute or two, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So, rag's still burning. It's actually starting to get work its way along the length of that rag. So with that length of that rag, it probably filled up about half that pan, the circumference of it. You can see it started way back there, and now it's worked its way over to here. Really watch your flow on the oil on these things. They can get out of control real quick. First time I lit this thing, I ended up having flames come out the chimney, out the top of the chimney. So. And also, the first time I lit it, I didn't have a dampener on it that I installed. But I made a dampener of old tire iron, just a flat piece of metal, round piece of metal in there. That really does help us control the airflow a lot and be able to shut it down if we want to. It sucks as soon as you open the door. I'd like to put a glass piece in here so you'd be able to see it a lot easier. But as soon as you open the door, it releases that airflow. It starts coming through the door instead of up through the bottom. Oh yeah, we're about around the whole pan now. It's really lit. I think I'm gonna do that. I think I'm gonna find me some heat tempered glass or whatever it is they use on fireplaces, and I'm gonna put me a glass window in there. I don't like not being able to see it. I can't hear it. I don't know if the microphone's picking that up or not. Hear it now? Now the whole pan is lit up. Really good. As soon as you open the door and take the airflow away. Woo. So now the whole pan's burning, all the oil in the whole bottom is lit. I'm telling you, I don't have one of those laser temperature things. I need to buy one of those. I'm telling you, I'm starting to sweat. It's 70 degrees outside, and I'm starting to sweat already being near this. See what that does. Whew, that's warm air coming out of there. So it's got air coming down and out right here, on both sides. And it's also pushing the air to this heat exchanger. Whew. Damn, that thing's hot. Can you hear it? Now watch, I'll turn the dampener and close it. Almost kills it. But there it is. All you got to do is control your oil flow into it once you get it lit, and learn how much needs to be in there to, you know, for the fire to stay lit and to not overflow the oil pan. You don't want to get above those air vents. You want to stay below it so the air's getting in. But that's about all there is to it. It took a lot of hours because this is the first one I ever built. But I'm proud of it. It works for shots better than cutting, splitting firewood when I've got I don't know, a dozen barrels, 55-gallon barrels of used oil back there. I might as well utilize it for something.